An undercover CEO found a cleaner sleeping in a storage room. What he learned changed his life. "Don't open that door." The sound came from inside the closet, quiet, weak, scared. Isaac Carter stopped. He was walking down a dark, thin hall on the B2 service floor, holding a clipboard, acting like he was checking pipes. The hall was quiet, except for a light blinking sometimes and the low noise of far-off hotel machines. Until then, he looked at the closet, an old metal box fixed to the hall's far corner. The lock shook a little with a quiet clicking sound. Tap, 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 like nails tapping metal. Isaac leaned his head, making his eyes smaller. He waited. Another quiet bump came from inside, then a small squeak of something moving. His heart beat faster. He walked closer, his boots softly hitting the strong tiled floor. The air smelled of bleach and dust, with the smell of old cloths and cleaning liquid staying around. He put out his hand and touched the cold handle. "Hello?" he said, strong but calm. "Is anyone inside?" No one answered. The door moved a tiny bit, like something inside jumped. Isaac breathed in, fixed the collar of his Navy Moon work jacket, and pulled the door open. The door made a loud noise as it swung open. Something fell out. A girl, no, a woman, falling into his arms. "Whoa," he breathed out, catching her without thinking. She was light, almost no weight. Her head rested on his shoulder, and her arms hung loosely by her sides. He stepped back a little but held her steady. She wore the hotel cleaner's uniform, gray, creased, and dirty at the elbows. Her blonde hair was messy, her face pale and wet with sweat. Her breathing was fast and shallow. The smell of cleaning fluid stuck to her like she had been living in bleach. Isaac looked at her, shocked, not sure what he was seeing. Then her eyes opened softly. Big, shiny blue eyes looked back at him, scared. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please don't fire me." Isaac stopped still. The words felt like cold water thrown on him. The girl was shaking. Her fingers weakly held the front of his jacket before letting go. Her knees bent under her, and Isaac quickly changed his hold, stopping her from falling. She could hardly keep her eyes open. He looked at her, his heart beating fast. She had been sleeping in the storage room, hiding, very tired and very scared. And now she was asking to keep her job. At that moment, Isaac Carter, the boss of a very fancy hotel group, dressed in borrowed work clothes with a false name tag on his chest, stood in the dim, bright light of the basement hall, holding a shaking cleaner, not knowing what to say. She didn't know who he was, and for the first time in a long time, neither did he. Angela moved as Isaac carefully put her on the small bed in the staff bathroom. The room was plain. Bright lights made a soft hum above, and the walls were a boring light brown. The only things in it were a metal cabinet, a worn coffee table, and the bed she was on. Still, it was warmer and much nicer than being inside a storage cabinet. He took another blanket from a storage box and put it over her gently. She mumbled something unclear, her head turning a little when he touched her. Her face was still pale, her body loose with tiredness. He stood back for a bit, watching her, not sure what to think about what had just happened. Then, without speaking, he walked to the old electric pot in the corner, filled it with water, and started it boiling. A few minutes later, a quiet sound from the bed made him look. Angela blinked at the ceiling, confused, then slowly turned her head. Her eyes saw him, and right away the fear came back. I'm sorry," she said, her voice rough from sleeping. She tried hard to sit up, moving the blanket away. "I didn't mean to." "Hey," Isaac said softly, holding up both hands. "It's fine, you passed out. You needed a break." She looked at her lap, her fingers moving restlessly. "You shouldn't have helped me. You could get into problems." Isaac pulled a chair closer and sat facing her, putting a hot cup of tea on the table between them. "No one's in problems," he said. "Just drink this." Slowly she paused, then reached for the cup with both hands. Her fingers shook as she picked it up. She blew softly on the top, then took a small drink. Her shoulders went down a bit, as if some stress had left her. He watched her quietly for a bit. She looked young, maybe in her mid-20s. Her uniform was at least one size too big, and the collar was a little worn. Her hair, though pretty, was messy and put behind her ears with shaky care. Her shoes were scratched and wet from the rain outside. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him carefully. "Angela?" "Angela Reed. Good to meet you, Angela." "I'm Isaac." She nodded, not asking more questions. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. "Almost 3 months," she said softly. "Night shifts." She nodded again. There was a quiet moment. He could feel her putting her guard back up. "I just clean," she added. "Restrooms, halls, sometimes cooking areas. Long hours." She drank her tea. 7 o'clock p.m. to 3 o'clock a.m. usually. Isaac looked at her closely. "That's a hard schedule." She gave a weak smile, then looked away. "It's work." There was something in how she spoke, something accepting, like this wasn't the worst thing she had been through. Not at all. He leaned forward a little. "Are you okay? Really?" Angela's hands gripped the cup tighter. She took a breath. "I'm fine, just tired, that's all." He didn't push. He knew that way of speaking, the one people use when they are trying hard not to break down in front of others. "Do you live far from here?" he asked easily. A quiet moment. "I get by," she replied, her voice soft. "Sometimes I stay with a friend." "Sometimes?" She stopped. Isaac didn't need her to finish what she was saying. He already knew. He looked at her again, truly looked at her, not just at her uniform or the tiredness in her eyes. There was something more. Even with everything, her look was sharp, her voice clear, her manner calm. This wasn't a careless or lazy person. This was someone living through hardship. He stood up, walked to the cupboard and took out a small brown paper bag. Inside were some homemade oatmeal cookies he had brought earlier for himself, a special treat during his late-night checks. He put the bag on the table in front of her without speaking. Angela blinked at it, confused. "I made them," Isaac said simply. "Not amazing, but fine to eat." She opened the bag slowly. The smell of cinnamon and brown sugar filled the room. Her face became a little softer. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. He put it next to the cookies. "If you ever forget, we all need a place to rest sometimes. That doesn't mean we're weak." Angela looked at the paper, her eyes blinking quickly. She didn't speak. Isaac turned to go, letting her have the private space she clearly needed. He stopped at the door. "You're not in trouble, Angela," he said softly. "Not with me." Then he left, letting the door close quietly behind him. Isaac found himself watching her more than he meant to. Angela never seemed to see him. She worked her shift with quiet attention, doing everything in a careful, step-by-step way. She cleaned floors with slow, even movements, wiped tables as if they held stories, and arranged chairs with extreme care. She never hurried, never grumbled, never looked at her phone. To most people, it might have looked like she was just doing her work, but Isaac saw something different. There was a softness in how she moved, like she was taking care of someone, not just objects. Like every tile she shined, every spot she cleaned held meaning. It reminded him how his mother used to fold his shirts when he was small. Like even the tiniest jobs deserved kindness. One night around 11 p.m., he saw her in the South Hall near the guest rooms. An old guest was trying to move his wheelchair on the thick rug. Isaac stood back, wanting to see what she would do. Angela walked up without delay, bent down next to the man, and spoke to him gently. She smiled, fixed his footrest, then took a folded item from her cart, a handmade, old-looking blue scarf. She wrapped it softly around the man's shoulders. "There," she said, her voice just loud enough to be heard. "Now you look like someone who has been loved his whole life." The old man laughed softly, his eyes showing small lines. "I have been, but not for a while." Angela smiled again, and Isaac watched as she slowly led him down the hall, step by step, as if it was the most important thing she had to do that night. It stayed with him. After that, every shift, he noticed more. Angela arrived exactly on time and went down the same dark halls quietly. She worked the night shift, stayed away from the staff room, and never took long rests. Every evening when her work ended, she didn't leave through the main door. Instead, she would quietly go down the service hall on the hotel's east side, walking toward the old equipment storage, an area with no active cameras. He didn't face her, not yet, but the questions in his head became stronger. Was she living in the hotel, sleeping there, hiding something? He began staying later than usual, timing his walks to match the end of her shift. She never saw him, or if she did, she said nothing. Then one night around 3:10 a.m., he saw her again. She came out quietly from the cleaner's closet near the loading area, holding a folded blanket under one arm and a small picture frame in the other. She didn't see him standing in the dark. She walked down the hall like a ghost, quiet and slow, her old shoes making almost no noise. She went into the old storage room on B2. Isaac waited. 5 minutes went by, then 10. At last his curiosity won over his caution. He followed the hall, moving slowly until he got to the storage room door. The light inside was low, coming through a broken part of the ceiling. He reached for the door, but stopped. Through the small gap in the doorframe, he could see just enough. Angela had spread out a pile of clean towels to make a temporary bed. She sat on them with her legs crossed, her back to the door, holding the small picture frame tightly. She looked at it for a long time. Then she pulled a thin blanket over her shoulders and lay down, coiling up like someone trying to hide. A few seconds later, she sighed, a sound so soft, so tired, that Isaac felt it inside him. Her hand moved over the photo as she closed her eyes. He stood there, still. The woman who cleaned toilets with respect, who made strangers feel better without thinking, who worked with order and smoothness, was sleeping in a storage room. His hand gripped the doorknob tighter. He could go in, say something, offer help, but something inside him paused. He watched her shoulders move up and down, her blonde hair spread over a pile of towels, the photo still held tight to her chest. Then he slowly let go of the handle, the metal clicking softly back into place. He moved away quietly. Sometimes, he thought, the strongest sadness is the one no one hears. It was almost midnight when Isaac found Angela sitting alone in the back stairs, her legs pulled up close to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them. The cold cement steps didn't do much to keep the night cold out, but she didn't seem to care. He paused at the top of the stairs before walking down slowly. "I thought this was the only place no one else came," she said without turning. Isaac stopped halfway down the steps, watching her back move up and down with steady, usual breathing. "I'll leave you alone if you want," he said. She shook her head. "No, you can stay. It's just more peaceful here." He sat 2 steps below her, near enough to talk, far enough not to disturb her. They sat quietly for a bit, the air between them heavy but not bad. Angela looked at the flaking paint on the wall across, her eyes far away, not seeing clearly. "I used to imagine stairs like these," she said softly. Isaac leaned his head. "What do you mean?" She gave a weak smile. "Hospitals, doctor schools, all those old buildings with noisy halls and shiny stairs. I used to think I'd walk them wearing a white coat, holding patient papers, saving lives." He looked at her, shocked. "You studied to be a doctor?" She nodded once, slowly. 2.5 years at Boston Medical. I had money to study for free. I was the best in my class." He waited, knowing not to stop her. "My dad died when I was 12. My mom raised us by herself. She worked 2 jobs just to feed my little brother and me. He has autism, not a light case. He needs full-time help, doesn't speak, is smart, but stuck. I always wanted to make things right for them." Her voice shook a little now, but she kept going. "I studied a lot, applied for all kinds of things, worked weekends, got in. I was going to be a child brain doctor. That was my dream." But then her words faded, her lips pressing into a thin line. Isaac said nothing, letting the quiet hold her words. "She got sick again," Angela went on. "Mom, breast cancer, very bad stage. It came back quickly, strongly. I tried to keep going. School by day, hospital by night, taking care of Dylan in between, but the money owed kept getting bigger. My free time kept getting smaller." She stopped, a breath caught in her throat. "She died in my 3rd year. I missed 2 tests to be with her. They wouldn't let me retake them. I lost my free study money, then my apartment, then everything." Isaac swallowed hard. "I sent Dylan to live with her friend on the other side of town. I took the night job here because it paid cash and no one asked anything. I told myself it was for a short time, just until I could solve things. Just a month, maybe 2. Angela laughed softly, in a sad way. It's been almost a year. He turned to her, but she still didn't look him in the eyes. Instead, she took something from her cleaner's jacket pocket, a small, crinkled plastic wallet. From it, she carefully opened a torn student ID card. The edges were old, the colors light. Her photo showed her younger, smiling, hair pulled back neatly. She held it out for him. I keep this, she said softly. Not because I still think I'll go back there, but because it reminds me I was once a person who believed I could. Isaac took the card gently, looking at it for a long time. Her name, Angela Reed, printed clearly under the university's symbol. He gave it back to her without speaking. Angela put it away carefully, like it was the last weak piece of a life that was no longer hers. I don't steal, I don't lie, I just try to stay unnoticed, she whispered. People don't help what they can't see. Isaac's chest hurt, and for the first time he felt how much he really didn't know about the lives moving quietly around his world of shiny floors and fancy hotel entrances. I see you, he said softly. Angela looked up at him then, her face showing nothing clear, but for the first time she didn't look away. They started a routine neither of them planned. Every night, after her work ended and before his checks finished, Angela and Isaac would meet on the back stairs near the service lift, a forgotten part of the hotel where no one ever went. Quiet and dim and not important, just like them. Angela always brought 2 sandwiches wrapped in paper, one for herself, one she offered with a shy, almost ashamed look. Isaac never said no. In return, he brought small things: a shared hot tea in a bottle, a chocolate bar, a boiled egg with salt packs. They never made it seem special, it just became their thing. They talked. Angela asked him about his old job, and he made up a story about working in maintenance at a hotel in Cleveland. Truth was mixed with lies, just enough to seem real. He didn't like tricking her, but he needed time to get to know her, to see her true self without his job title or power getting in the way. In return, Angela shared parts of her life. Slowly, carefully, she told him stories about her brother, Dylan, and how he would hum when he wanted something instead of speaking. She spoke about her mother's bad baking and how they used to laugh over burned cookies. Sometimes she would stop talking in the middle of a sentence, as if realizing she was sharing too much. Isaac never pressured her. He just listened. One night, as she dried her hands on her apron, Angela looked at him and said, "You clean windows the wrong way." He blinked. "What did you say?" "Your movements are circles. You need to go up and down. Down, not around, for fewer streaks." He raised an eyebrow, finding it funny. "You're telling me I've been cleaning windows wrongly for 30 years? "I'm telling you you've been cleaning windows wrong since the first day you picked up a cloth," she replied, smiling widely. He then laughed, a true and free laugh. "Okay, show me." And she did. Right there, with an extra cloth and a glass part of the stairwell door, she showed him. Isaac copied her movements, doing the same as her big hand signs, and they both ended up laughing so much they had to sit. Times like that made the nights feel less heavy. But still, underneath it all, Isaac saw the tiredness in her walk, the way she flinched when standing too long. He watched her walk with a slight limp on her left foot after long work periods, her shoes too old, the bottoms coming off. So he did something secretly without telling her. He bought a pair of strong, weather-resistant work shoes, black, good for support, half a size bigger, just what she needed. He put them inside the cupboard where she kept her cleaning tools, right next to the mop she always grumbled about. Inside one of the shoes, he put a small folded note, written by hand in his slanted writing. "Someone like you shouldn't be going through life in pain. You deserve better with every step." The next night, she came to the stairs holding the shoes against her chest. Her eyes were shiny, her voice almost silent. "You did this?" Isaac looked at her softly. "You work hard. It's the least someone could do." She sat down on the steps next to him, her fingers following the edge of the shoebox. Her defenses, so carefully built, began to break. Then, all at once, Angela gave in. Tears ran down her face before she could stop them, not from being tired, not from being alone, but because for the first time in a long while, someone truly saw her. "I don't cry," she whispered, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I stopped doing that a long time ago." "You don't have to stop here," Isaac said softly. She turned to him, eyes red, face red. But there was something else in her tears, a feeling of relief, and maybe, just maybe, something that looked like hope starting to appear. The morning work wasn't supposed to start for another hour, but the noise in the service hall made it feel like noon. Angela stood still, her back against the storage closet door. Her things, blanket, picture frame, an old hooded shirt, lay scattered on the floor in front of her. Two bosses stood close by, one holding a clipboard, the other tapping his phone impatiently. "We found her sleeping here again," the main manager said harshly. "Third time? That's a reason to fire you right away. Company rules are very clear." "I told you it was just for a second," Angela cut in, her voice shaking. "My feet hurt. I just needed to sit. I didn't mean to sleep, I promise." "No one is paying you to sleep in storage rooms," the woman said sharply. "You're finished here." Angela's face fell apart. She bent down to pick up her things, her hands struggling with the picture frame, her face hot with shame. Then a voice broke the silence, calm but strong. "That's enough." Everyone looked. Isaac stood at the end of the hall, still wearing the navy work jacket, his hair wet from the rain outside. He walked forward with a calm sureness that made everyone stop. "Who are you?" the boss asked, annoyed. Isaac's eyes stayed on Angela. "Move away from her." The manager paused, showing a frown. "Excuse me? Are you the head of this section?" Isaac reached for the zipper at his neck and slowly opened the jacket, taking it off and showing the clean white shirt under it. He took the badge from his chest and let it drop to the floor. He stood tall. "My name is Isaac Carter," he said clearly. "I am the main boss of this hotel group." Silence. One of the younger workers dropped their clipboard. A cleaner nearby held back a gasp. Angela looked at him, shocked. Her mouth opened, then closed again. "I have been here secretly for several weeks," Isaac went on, his voice steady. "I've seen enough to know what must change. But this," he pointed toward Angela, "is not what's wrong with this place." He turned to the bosses. "You will not fire her. She is not the issue. She is why this place still feels right." The manager's face turned white. "Sir, You're let go. I will talk to you later." The hall became empty quicker than anyone could blink. Isaac turned to Angela, who still hadn't moved. She looked at him as if he was someone she had never seen before. "Angela, stop." Her voice was quiet, not mad, not loud, just shattered. "You lied to me," she whispered. He walked closer carefully. "I never lied about who I was to you. I just didn't tell you everything. You needed to act like someone else to see how people like me truly live," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "You heard my stories. You took my food. You sat next to me every night. You made me believe," her voice broke. "You made me believe I wasn't by myself." Isaac reached out his hand. "Angela, I meant everything I said. Everything I felt was true. It is true." She stepped back. "Do you know how hard it is to trust someone when everyone already ignores you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "And then the only person who saw you turns out to have been hiding behind a mask the whole time." She held the blanket tight to her chest, tears now freely flowing down her face. "I told you things I never spoke to anyone," she whispered. "I showed you who I truly was. And I saw you," Isaac said softly. "Every piece, even the parts you tried to keep hidden." But she shook her head. "I don't know who you are now." Then, without another word, she turned and left, her steps fast, her shoulders stiff, her face marked with pain. Isaac didn't follow. He stood alone in the hall, surrounded by quiet and sadness, the mask in his hand now pointless, because the one person he most wanted to see him had already walked away. Angela left the hotel without speaking. No big leaving, no last look, just quiet. Her chest felt empty, like all the air was gone from the room the moment Isaac showed who he really was. It wasn't the trick that broke her. It was the hope, the silly, risky hope that maybe for once someone had truly seen her. Not as a problem, not as someone to fix or a wrong to correct, but as a person worth hearing. She went back to the small room she shared with her mother's old friend, where her 13-year-old brother Dylan had been living. The room was tight, with little furniture, and smelled a little of soap and old wood. Dylan sat with his legs crossed on the floor, building something complex with colored blocks, his head leaning in a familiar way when she came in. He didn't speak. He almost never did. But his eyes looked up at hers, and they gave that same quiet comfort, that unasked question. Are we still okay? The next morning, Angela took Dylan to his planned checkup at the Early Help Center, one of the few visits she had managed to save enough money for. But the moment they walked inside, she knew something was wrong. The center was perfectly clean, much better than the ones she could pay for. Classrooms with glass walls lined the halls, each full of children getting individual care from highly skilled experts. Calm music played in the waiting room. Every small thing felt too far out of her reach. She walked to the front desk, pausing. "I think there's been a mistake," she said. "My brother, Dylan Reed, we had a meeting, but I can't pay for this place. I only filled out a starting form online." The woman at the desk smiled and gave her a closed envelope. "We've been waiting for you. This is for you." Angela opened it slowly. Inside was a full plan for Dylan's care: custom therapy, weekly meetings with a behavior expert, speech practice, even advice for parents. Every service had a check mark next to it, each followed by the word paid. She turned to the last page. There, written in known, slightly leaning handwriting, was one simple sentence. No one can study well when their little brother is being left behind by the world. Her breath stopped. Her fingers gripped the edge of the envelope tighter. It was Isaac. There was no name signed, but she would have known that handwriting anywhere. And the truth of it struck her harder than anything he had ever spoken. While she had been doubting if he was real, feeling sad about losing trust, he had been helping Dylan quietly, without asking for praise or thanks. As she helped Dylan put on his coat, something fell from the inside pocket. A pair of brand new shoes, small, strong for a child, slid out onto the bench. She picked them up with shaking hands. Same brand, same color, the same caring usefulness as the shoes he had once given her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts went around and around, trying to make sense of the lie she thought she found with the truth he had never said. She understood then that sometimes people wore masks not to trick others, but to protect the weak parts of themselves, the parts that still believed in good, in new things, in people like her. Just before the sun came up, Angela went back to the hotel. She didn't go inside. Instead, she walked softly to the side door near the main offices and left a small cloth bag in front of the CEO's door. Inside the bag were the work shoes Isaac had given her, scratched now, old from months of hard walking, but still whole. Next to them, a well-prepared meal she had made herself, still warm in a glass box, wrapped in a kitchen towel, and placed between them a small folded paper. On it, she wrote only one sentence. "I learned how to walk alone, but if you are still standing there, I'd like to try again. On these feet with you." Isaac found the bag just after morning light, sitting outside the glass door of his office. The hall was still silent in the quiet before the city woke up. He bent down, opened the old cloth bag carefully, and took out each item: worn shoes, a still warm meal, and a folded paper. He smoothed the paper, reading the words in her known handwriting. "I learned how to walk alone, but if you are still standing there, I'd like to try again on these feet with you." A gentle smile appeared on his lips, not like a win, just finally able to breathe again. That night at 10 p.m., Angela stood in front of the old storage closet. Her hand shook as she reached for the handle. The hall was as silent as the night she had first fallen through this door, but tonight there was no fear, only hope. She opened it. The small room had changed completely. On the wall, framed in dark wood, was the only photo she had of her mother and Dylan, smiling in summer light. Below it, a small shelf held new medical books and a box marked Dylan, full of well-organized therapy tools. In the middle sat a pair of very clean white nursing shoes, and next to them, a plastic-covered student ID. Angela Reed. On the wall opposite, a sign read, "The closet for those who dared to keep going." Angela's breath stopped. She turned, and there was Isaac. No jacket, no job title, just him. His voice was soft. "I didn't do this because I felt sorry for you. You reminded me what is truly important. It's not about rank or name. It's about people who continue when no one is watching." She stepped forward, her voice almost silent. "You gave me back my brother's laughter. You gave me back myself. I only helped you see what was already there. You saw me. I never stopped." She put her hand gently on his chest. No long talks, no guarantees, just two people choosing to stay. In the weeks after, Angela went back to medical school. Her study costs secretly paid. She became a student helper, her story shared from one student having a hard time to another. Dylan did very well in his program. He talked more, laughed more, even painted his first picture. His sister. Together, Angela and Isaac started the Shelter Project, giving homes and help to students like her. They filled it with people who once knew how it felt to be ignored. And this time, they made sure no one was. One spring morning, Angela stood at the front of her first child medicine class. Her name tag shined in the sun. Her voice, calm and soft, was heard across the room. "I used to sleep in a storage closet," she said. "Not because I was lazy, but because I had no other place to dream." She stopped, letting the truth sink in. "But I am here now to tell you that light finds us even in the darkest spots, and dreams they wait. Sometimes longer than we'd want, but they do wait." At the back of the room, leaning quietly against the wall, Isaac smiled. If this story moved your feelings, if you have ever felt unseen in a world that goes too fast, remember this: you are not alone. There is light even in the deepest corners, and sometimes hope is waiting for you exactly where you thought you lost it. Thank you for watching Soul-Stirring Stories, where every story is told not just to be heard, but to be felt, to make better, to cry, to recall what truly matters. If you want more strong, moving stories like this, stories of kindness, strength, and love that go against all problems, please subscribe and turn on the notice bell so you never miss a moment with us. Soul-Stirring Stories, where every story is a heartbeat. We tell them so you never forget. Wonders are real.